the musical cue. Okay,
You
we're
ready?
being recorded.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Me and my partner Sam have decided to do a presentation on the role of women at the time of Elizabeth, which is between 1558 and 1603. We have decided to presentate on 6 topics of this subject, which is marriage, theater, education, economy, families, and life expectancy. To start, we have marriage. In Elizabethan times, women were allowed to marry from the age of 12, but often only women from wealthy families would marry so young. The other families with less to offer would wait until they would find a husband that could financially support them and their future children, which led to many women not marrying until their mid-20s. Many marriages were arranged for the good of the family, and small children might be promised to each other in order to join the families together before they were old enough to get married. A man was considered the head of a marriage, and he had the legal right to discipline his wife. However, it did not mean that the husband was able to command his wife to do anything he pleased. He was expected to take care of her, make sure she had everything she needed, and most importantly, to love her and be a good father to any children they had. If a husband felt the need to discipline his wife, then he was not allowed to be cruel or inflict bodily harm. Women were expected to bring a dowry, which is a small amount of money, goods, and property to the marriage. After marriage, women were expected to run households and provide children. Large families were normal, but they didn't always stay large because of the high mortality rates at the time. Women were expected to obey the father, brother, uncle, and any other male member of the family. The punishment for disobedience was a beating. It was seen as a sin to disobey the male member of the family. Fun fact, but still a bit sad fact. At the age of which you could get married was only raised to 16 in 1929.
The theater. Women were not allowed on the stage at all. The female parts and plays at the time were played by boys, whose voice hadn't broken yet. In the several plays, the female character would disguise himself as a man, so the audience wouldn't have seen a man pretending to be a woman, to be a man. This happened in the novel that we just read, where a kid was pretending to be a boy, so she could play the female parts. Acting was considered this hopeful for women, and women did not appear on the stage of England until the 17th century.
And now for their education. During the time of Elizabeth women, they were not allowed to enter university, and women could not be hired by their father's titles. Only female royals could. Wealthy women were allowed education and were tutored at home. They were taught in Latin, Italian, Greek, and French. Dancing and music skills were essential to them. But no matter if a woman was wealthy or poor, all women could not attend university. On the other hand, education for middle class and poor women was quite different. They did not attend school and did not receive formal education. They had to learn to govern a household and had to become skilled in housewife duties. The only thing they learned is what they needed to know in order to marry.
Economy. Women were not allowed to enter professions in like politics, but they could work in domestic service and cooks and also maids, and etc. And females, painters. Women were also avoid to write books, literature, and providing the subjects as subtitles of women, mainly translation and religious work. Women were not allowed to act in the public stage and write for the public stage. Regardless of the social position, women were not allowed to vote. However, only men with certain social position were allowed to vote. They were not allowed to join the army or the navy, or they could not be a doctor or a lawyer. During that time, women did not have the rights to vote and were not uh, allowed to enter politics.
For families, in Elizabethan times, women belonged to their fathers, or in any case, to their brothers if their father died. And then once they got married, they would belong to their husband. Women could not own a property of their own, which is why Queen Elizabeth never married. She did not want to give up her power to a man. The only exceptions were widows, which are women whose husbands had died. A widow was in charge of her own life and property, but would be likely to marry again to find someone to protect her and be the legal guardian of her children. Women could not inherit the father's titles. All titles would pass from brother to son, from father to son, or from brother to brother, depending on the circumstances. The only exception was, of course, the crown. The crown could pass on to a daughter, and that daughter would be invested with all the power and majesty of any king.
Life expectancy. In the 17th century, English life expectancy was about only 35 years, largely because of the infant and child mortality remained high. Life expectancy was under 25 years in the early colony of Virginia. Back in those days, they did not have the technology or the resources to help the sick. They also didn't have the same food supplies as us right now in 2021, which why which is why they didn't stay alive for too long. In their generation, they stayed alive until their 80s. Women died more than often than men because they would either bleed out too much during birth or develop sickness.
Thank you for listening.
Alright, maintenant fait quoi?
Well, monsieur a dit que il a dit qu'il était pour revenir puis voir, puis qu'il fallait qu'on